So this video here is kind of like a part one to our cross-country road trip. We did take 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, and we drove out to California, went up the coastal highway, and then worked our way back. And these first few pictures is just some road signs I took on the way out. Our first national park adventure was in Arizona. We stopped at the Petrified National Forest National Park. We spent a couple of hours just walking some trails, riding through the park, checking out the scenery. Highly recommend it. It's a really cool place to check out. So right here we had to stop. I wanted to get a picture of the car with the big Route 66 sign in New Mexico. We kind of explored around that little town. It was a cute little park there. And then there was also it was an auto museum. So we did go there. I don't remember how much it cost. It wasn't very much at all, but it's one of those, little roadside attractions that is part of Route 66. Definitely, worth checking out if it's something, you just have some extra time. I got a few pictures from there. Just had some really neat cars, vintage gas pumps, stuff like that. This stop here was at the Cadillac Ranch, which I thought was super cool to check out. You can bring your own spray paint. You can, on as many cars as you want. So we walked around there, and the amount of paint on those cars, as you can see there, I just found to be so cool. But we walked around, did a little bit of artwork on the cars before getting back in the car and heading on down the road to our next stop, which is going to be Sedona. So this was our lunch stop, just a little burger joint in Sedona. The next few pictures and clips are going to be from there. I would have to say I do believe Sedona may have been my favorite spot along the trip. The views were just absolutely incredible. I was able on a couple of hikes, get my drone out, get some of these shots here. We did, I think, 2 hikes while we were in Sedona, and then we went and seen the chapel. And this right here, there was a golf course. I just thought that was so cool with the red rocks in the background. The weather there was amazing. It was like upper 70s. Everywhere else on this trip, it was super hot except for San Francisco. So this was a very welcome, like perfect temperature to do some hiking without feeling like you're, going to potentially die from a heat stroke. This here's a clip from I believe it's called the Bell Rock hiking trail in Sedona. We did that one, and I was able to use the drone to kind of zoom out and just show the magnitude of this rock and the gorgeous scenery around us. And all along the hike, there were plenty of spots to just stop, take in some views. The backdrops were just absolutely incredible. I love that there's the red rocks, but then where it's not so hot, you have the greenery too. I just think the whole place just really pops. So I would highly recommend that hike if you go. It's not very hard. I think it was maybe a mile to a mile and a half hike. Nothing real strenuous. There were families with smaller kids as well on the hike. So it's something that, most people could handle. These next couple of pictures, it was just us exploring downtown Sedona, checking out some shops and eateries with that breathtaking view in the background everywhere you look. This here is some drone footage, pictures of the Chapel of the Holy Cross that's in Sedona. I was really glad I was able to fly my drone to just get some pictures of this to really show the area and showcase just the gorgeous rocks and then that chapel just basically built into them. Our next national park that we went to, I believe I'm saying this right, it was Saguaro National Park. We went here, it first of all was 116 degrees. I'm not even kidding. It was so hot that there was hardly anyone there. It was like we had the park to ourselves. They've got a scenic loop that you can drive around, so we did that. We did take a hike as well, a very short one. As you can see, we have umbrellas just to shade ourselves from the sun. I think we passed 2 people on that hike, and they actually were turning around because it was just unbearably hot. So we didn't do the full hike, but we did walk to this little lookout point just to take in the views, and then we headed back to the car and pretty much just drove around that scenic loop. And I would stop periodically to get out. One of them would just catch my eye, and I'd be like, "Oh, let's stop here. I want to get a picture of this one." And oh, there's another one. Let's stop and get a picture of it. But it was so unbearably hot that day. I would love to go back when it is not that hot and do some more of the hikes. So maybe, in the future we can do something like that. But even so, in the blistering heat, it was a gorgeous place to experience. So this here was the resort that we stayed at in Arizona. It was in, I believe, Peoria was the name of the city. It was absolutely a gorgeous place. This was the pool. They had a water slide. They had cabanas that you could rent, which we did not do. But they had those if you were going to spend the day at the pool. This right here was like the entrance when you walked into the property. Sunset views, like this was from our patio that we had for our condo. Beautiful views. They had horseshoes, cornhole. They even had a little cactus garden that you could walk through, and they were all labeled. Fountains everywhere. They even had like a little area, I think they called it like Sunset Point, and it was basically just in this little gravel area, and they had chairs around a little fire pit. I guess it was supposed to be like the prime place to take in the sunsets on that property. But it was an experience in itself, just walking around the resort, after we'd explored all day and come back and eat and shower and just relax and kind of walk around the property, taking it all in. And this here was Griffin Observatory in Los Angeles. We had to go there. I wanted to see downtown LA, plus the Hollywood sign. I will say I thought the Hollywood sign would seem closer and bigger from the observatory than it really was, but it was still very cool to just see downtown LA, take in the skyline views, and see the Hollywood sign. It was quite a bit of a walk, though. We had to park down the hill and walk up because it was so busy. So it was probably a 30-45 minute walk just to get to the observatory, but still worth it, just to say that you did it. So this here is Warner Brothers Ranch, and it's been torn down now. They sold it. But when we planned the trip, I was like, I've got to see the Griswold's house from Christmas Vacation. And of course, there's some other ones, like this next house. It's from American Beauty. There's the Lethal Weapon house, the Bewitched house, the house from The Middle. And of course, there's all kinds of other shows that these houses are known for. These are just the shows and movies that I associate them with. But when we got there, of course, it was closed because it had been sold, and the security guard was like, I can't, let you in. And I told him, I was like, well, let me ask you, I have a drone. And I was like, would it be okay if I flew the drone up over the fence to get some pictures? I was like, because this, is a bucket list item for me. And he was cool with it. So that's how I was able to get these pictures before they tore everything down. And then after that, we went just kind of walking around. We got to go by the Brady Bunch house. We got to see it. There was a couple other homes that from TV shows and movies that I was like, oh, let's, hunt those down. So this is when we were walking around. And I love the movie Father of the Bride. That house, when I was a kid, I just thought it was the coolest house. It was so beautiful. So this is that house. We were able to walk by and see it. And that neighborhood was absolutely gorgeous. The grounds to these homes was just breathtaking. We also got to see the house from Brothers and Sisters, the TV show. And of course, we had to see the Golden Girls house. So we went to it. Of course, they now have a fence up, I guess, to give them a little bit of privacy. But I sure was out in the middle of the street holding my phone up, trying to get over the fence to get a good picture of the house. But our next national park was Joshua Tree. We stopped here. This was just kind of, we had a couple of hours allotted that we could stop here, drive around, do a hike. It was also a very hot day here when we went. But, we were like, okay, we're here. We got to see it. We'll just deal with the heat. So that's what we did. Try to get some pictures. We went on a short hike. I don't know, maybe a mile or so round trip. Nothing major, but we stopped there just, to take it all in, see the really cool, unique trees there and the beautiful rocks. This here is the Santa Monica Pier. We went there just to kind of see it, walk around. I'm not a thrill ride kind of person, so we didn't ride any of the roller coasters or anything like that. Mainly, I just wanted to see it, grab a few pictures, take it all in, because we've seen it, on so many movies and TV shows. And also, that's kind of like the start of the Pacific Coast Highway, which that was our next adventure. We were going to drive up that. So this is kind of the base for that. So we just, kind of drove around the area, checked out a few things, hung out here, grabbed a little snack before we started actually on the coastal highway to our next destination. So on this day, we spent several hours doing the Warner Brothers studio tour. This is when the Barbie movie was being promoted and was in the theaters. I absolutely loved this. For anyone that loves, anything to do with the history of TV shows and movies and set design. They had Central Park. They had that set up like the little coffee shop. You could eat there. Of course, they had all the Friends memorabilia, everything Friends related you could think of. And then we actually did the studio tour. They take you around on the shuttles to all the different stages and studios. This here was the prop warehouse. I found this to be so freaking cool because they had production studios rent these things out for movie sets. So they had everything, they had a section that was like telephones, and it was from every era of telephones that you could think of. Light fixtures. They had everything grouped together. And, you'd walk around and you would see little tags that shows or movies that were in production, they had reserved them, renting them out. It was just so cool. I mean, they had radios from, the 40s all the way through the 80s and 90s. We got to walk around and see all of that. And they were kind of giving us a little bit of the history of that, which I thought was really cool. And we got to see several sets. From Gilmore Girls, The House. Some people may not remember this show or know the show, but Growing Pains, from the opening of that show. We got to see that, which I believe it may have been the Gremlins too, that house was part of, or that may have been one of the other houses. I can't really remember. But we did, for the Gilmore Girls, we did actually get to go into the house. And funny story about that, the back side of the house it was the set for Lorelei's house, and then the front, I believe, was the inn or the bed and breakfast from the show, which I thought was really cool that it, one building just on each side, the front and the back, served as two different sets. And we got to just walk in it, I guess, where they had filmed some scenes. And of course, it's empty, but it was still really cool just to walk in there and get to see all of it. One of our stops along the coastal highway was Carmel by the Sea. We absolutely love this place. We didn't have a whole lot of time because we were actually traveling through to get to our next destination, but we stopped here, spent, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours walking around. It had a lot of high-end boutiques, fancy restaurants, stuff like that, but then it had some really cute little quaint places as well. And then we walked down to the beach, which was absolutely gorgeous. The trees, the landscaping down along the ocean was gorgeous. The homes, of course, were, I can only imagine what they would cost to purchase a home in this area. But it was a really cute area. I'm glad that we stopped by there, just, had a couple hours to just check it out, take it all in. So the rest of the footage in this video in part 1, this was our adventure up the Pacific Coast Highway. I have never been anywhere with such a gorgeous scenery. And the road is, just winding along on these, cliff views of the ocean. Everything was it was gorgeous. And we seen these kite surfers on the side of the road, and I was like, we need to pull over, let's just watch this, because I just found this so cool. And the majority of these people that were doing it, a lot of them were older men, and let me tell you, they were absolutely tearing it up out there. But I thought it was so cool to watch that, see that. I stopped a couple places. I was able to get my drone out also, so I could show, really get a grasp of the scenery and the mountains with the ocean. It was there's so many places to pull off, to take in the scenery. And you could spend 2 weeks just doing the Pacific Coast Highway and stopping all the little towns, doing all the overlooks, taking everything in. The water was absolutely gorgeous. There's just something about the mountains with the cliff sides and then the gorgeous water. It was unlike anything really that I've ever seen. And then we stayed overnight in this cute little town. I cannot remember the name of it, but the place was called the Castle Inn. It was a small, quaint little place, super cute, super clean. And some of these shots was just right down the road or across the street from it, because you had the highway between the hotels, and there were several hotels kind of right there together, and a couple little restaurants, but a very small place. You're not really close to a whole lot, so there wasn't a lot there except to just go and take in the views. So we stayed there overnight, and this was some of the drone footage from right there. Absolutely gorgeous area, especially if you want to just kind of get away from it all, just relax and recharge. And the water crashing against the rocks, there was just something so soothing about it, and we kind of needed it because we were starting to get pretty tired at this point in the trip, because there was a lot of driving, of course, we were taking in a lot of things, stopping here, stopping there. And this is that town that was right up from the hotel. I cannot think of the name of it. But it had this cute little place here. They had plants, garden art. It was just a really cute little place to check out. There was a couple of little restaurants right there, but that was pretty much the extent of that little town and what they had to offer. This here is that hotel that we stayed at. It was super cute. As you can see, it's not a very big place. This is across the street. They had walking paths and a little boardwalk that you could take in. And there were several small hotels right there together. For me, I think they were very expensive, but of course, you know, you have the views. It's kind of almost like a boutique type hotel. It's a standard hotel room, but it was decorated. Super cute, very clean. Everything was, you know, well kept, well taken care of. And I would definitely stay again. But like I said, it's one of those places there's not much to do around there. So it was just a stopping point for us overnight to take a break, recharge before we headed on up the coast. And then the last part of this video is going to be the Bixby Bridge. This was something I was so excited to see. I was excited to be able to get my drone, get some footage. I feel like I was able to get some really cool footage of this bridge. We hung out there for quite a bit, just taking the views in, relaxing, getting some fresh air and sunshine. There was a really good breeze blowing. It wasn't super busy, but the coastal highway was closed not far up from this, so we did have to backtrack and go over to the main interstate in order to get to San Francisco, which was the next stop on the trip.